A sealed chamber beneath Göbekli Tepe was finally opened. What was inside shocked everyone. In southeastern Turkey, scientists breached a vault that had been locked for over 12,000 years. The air that rushed out was so cold it burned. The smell was metallic and wrong. And when they lowered cameras inside, what they discovered wasn't ancient treasure or religious artifacts. It was bodies fused to metal walls, a chemical compound still reacting after millennia, and symbols warning anyone who could read them. We sealed what called from below. This isn't a temple, it's a tomb, or worse, a prison. And we just opened it. Before we dive deeper into what they found, hit that like button and subscribe, because what you're about to hear will change how you see human history forever. Let's rewind to the early 1990s. A German archaeologist named Klaus Schmidt shows up at this random hillside that locals call Potbelly Hill. Pretty underwhelming name, right? Here's the thing. Everyone had already written this place off. Decades earlier, researchers from the University of Chicago took one look, decided it was just another medieval cemetery, scribbled some notes, and never came back. But Schmidt, he saw something different. While everyone else saw broken rocks and weeds, Schmidt noticed edges that were too clean, surfaces too flat. These weren't natural formations, they were pieces of something deliberately made. So he did what any good archaeologist would do. He started digging. Within days, they hit something massive, a limestone pillar. Not just any pillar. This thing stood over 5 meters tall. And it wasn't alone. More pillars emerged, arranged in perfect circles, covered in intricate carvings of animals, foxes, vultures, snakes, wild boars. The craftsmanship was so precise that experienced workers stopped what they were doing just to stare. Now comes the moment that made archaeologists around the world lose their minds. They collected samples, charcoal, bone fragments, organic material from around the pillars, sent them to labs for radiocarbon dating. The results? 9,600 BCE. Let that sink in. This place is over 11,000 years old. That's thousands of years before Stonehenge, thousands of years before the pyramids of Giza. According to everything historians thought they knew, humans at this time were supposed to be nomadic hunter-gatherers. They weren't building permanent structures. They definitely weren't carving and moving 50-ton stones. Yet here was the proof, staring them in the face. The problem with perfection questions, without answers. Schmidt's discovery turned into a global sensation. Göbekli Tepe was crowned the world's oldest temple. But here's where things get weird. The more researchers studied this place, the less sense it made. The tools required for this kind of precision didn't exist yet, at least not according to our timeline of human development. The organizational skills needed to coordinate hundreds of workers for decades. That wasn't supposed to happen for thousands more years. Computer models tried to replicate the construction process using Neolithic tools. The results? It should have been impossible. Some researchers started looking at climate data from that period. They noticed something interesting. Göbekli Tepe's construction coincides almost perfectly with the end of a catastrophic event called the Younger Dryas. Around 10,900 BCE, Earth suddenly plunged into an ice age that lasted over 1,000 years. Mass extinctions, collapsed populations, chaos. What if Göbekli Tepe wasn't built by primitive hunter-gatherers? What if it was built by survivors of that catastrophe? People who were rebuilding after their world had ended. Now, I need to be clear. Mainstream archaeology largely rejects what I'm about to tell you. But the theories exist, and they're compelling enough to consider. Some researchers propose that Göbekli Tepe might represent knowledge passed down from a previous civilization, one that existed before the Younger Dryas and was wiped out during it. Could an advanced society have left behind instructions, techniques, or knowledge that allowed these survivors to accomplish the seemingly impossible? Most academics say no. But the question lingers: how did Stone Age people suddenly develop architectural and engineering capabilities that look centuries ahead of their time? Schmidt himself, before he died, suggested that Göbekli Tepe might not mark the beginning of civilization, but rather the last remnant of something that came before. Years after Schmidt's death, a new research team resumed excavation using advanced technology. They cleared surface layers and reached what appeared to be a sealed floor beneath the main ring. When they lifted the limestone slabs, they found something unexpected: rows of flat tablets arranged edge to edge, not random, deliberate, like someone had built a hidden archive, then buried it. As they cleaned the tablets, a disturbing pattern emerged. These weren't just weathered by time. Someone had deliberately damaged specific carvings. Human faces had their eyes chipped away. Certain symbols were cut in half. It was targeted destruction. Someone wanted to erase particular information while leaving the rest intact. Under microscopic analysis, the tablets revealed something even stranger. They'd been fired twice. First heating to harden them. Second heating to create a glossy, seal-like coating on the surface. Why seal a tablet after carving it? Imaging tests provided the answer. There were markings beneath the outer surface. Hidden text, different from the visible carvings. Some linguists compared these hidden symbols to Proto-Sumerian writing. 3 words appeared repeatedly: bind, contain, and watch. One fragment stood out. It showed a single figure standing between 2 curved lines, possibly rivers. Above it was a word that some translated as "the sleepers below." Most experts dismiss this translation as too speculative, but the image sparked intense debate. If the translation was even partially accurate, these tablets weren't just records. They were warnings. The arrangement of these tablets proved critical. Their positions and orientations, when mapped, formed a geometric pattern, pointing directly beneath the temple's main ring. The tablets weren't randomly scattered. They were markers. Markers for what? That answer would come years later, when improved scanning technology revealed a buried vault directly below. The descent following the warnings. The research team couldn't shake the feeling that those tablets were pointing to something specific. The words bind and contain had to mean more than abstract concepts. They scanned the ground beneath the main ring, searching for anomalies. Days later, equipment revealed a hollow space deep underground. The void was too symmetrical to be natural. Straight edges, even measurements. Something had been built down there. Excavation began carefully, layer by layer. Then a worker's tool struck something curved. As more earth was cleared, a pattern emerged. Evenly spaced cuts spiraling downward into bedrock. A staircase. When they shone lights down the passage, everyone fell silent. The stairs descended in perfect symmetry, winding deep into the stone. The air that drifted up was cold and metallic, carrying a scent that workers described as wrong, like minerals and dust that had been sealed for millennia. Halfway down, they hit a wall. Not stone, mud brick, pressed so tightly together that the structure looked impenetrable. Chemical sensors detected something alarming: mercury leaking between the bricks. Ancient cultures did use mercury in sacred sites, but its presence here served as confirmation. Whoever built this wanted it to stay sealed. For 2 days, they carefully removed the bricks. When the final layer came loose, the chamber exhaled. The air rushed upward with a hiss, cold, dense, and carrying that same metallic smell. Their equipment lenses fogged over. They were breathing air that had been trapped for more than 10,000 years. Their lights revealed a chamber carved from solid rock, smooth walls curving in perfect circles. Dozens of carvings covered the surfaces, spirals, suns, handprints. But here's what made everyone uneasy. Every single carving faced downward, pointing toward the ground. Not worship, submission. At the center stood two massive T-shaped pillars, even larger than those above ground, covered in thin intersecting lines from base to top. When digitally mapped, those lines formed a precise pattern, constellations as they appeared around 10,950 BCE, the exact start date of the Younger Dryas, the catastrophe that had nearly ended humanity. According to reports from workers, the walls seemed to shimmer faintly when touched by moisture. Under light, the symbols appeared to react, giving the impression that the chamber itself was alive. Members of the team described the experience as deeply unsettling. Every element felt defensive, not decorative. The builders weren't honoring anything, they were sealing something. And then they noticed the floor beneath the twin pillars, a layer of carved stone that didn't match the rest of the chamber. Something was underneath. The pulse strange readings. The team installed instruments to record temperature, air density, and vibration levels before going any deeper. For the first few hours, everything remained normal. Then the sensors started acting strange. Vibration meters picked up faint tremors, rhythmic bursts that didn't match any external movement. A technician recalibrated the devices, thinking it was an error. The pattern remained, slow, steady pulses coming from directly beneath the central pillars. Temperature sensors began fluctuating wildly. The air near the floor grew warmer, then suddenly dropped several degrees. One researcher compared it to a heartbeat, rising and falling at irregular intervals. Then they heard it, a soft humming echoing through the room, not loud, but resonant enough to make the stone beneath their feet vibrate. Dust drifted upward from cracks between floor slabs, not from wind, but as if being drawn out by air from below. A probe placed into one of the fractures detected electromagnetic activity, weak but repeating in intervals. The pattern didn't match any known geological rhythm. Some scientists insisted it was a magnetic reaction from deep mineral layers. Others grew genuinely uneasy, suspecting something artificial was producing it, something that hadn't gone dormant even after 12,000 years. Static began interfering with their lights. Fine drops of moisture appeared on the walls, forming a metallic sheen. Several technicians reported that the stone looked like it was breathing. Fear crept through the team. Some refused to stay near the central pillars. The lead researchers tried to maintain calm, insisting the vibrations were natural, but the pattern continued, repeating from beneath the chamber floor. They ordered a controlled removal of the central floor section. As the first slab came loose, the humming deepened, the sensors spiked. Then the sound stopped completely. When the dust cleared, they saw an opening leading to something even deeper. The vault. The metal box. What lay beneath the chamber floor stunned everyone. A massive square vault, metallic, cold, perfectly preserved. The surface reflected light in uneven ripples, as if oil had been pressed into every joint. It stretched from wall to wall, larger than any structure they'd uncovered. This wasn't stone. This was engineered. The vault had been built directly into bedrock. Every seam was melted shut, fused with the surrounding rock as though extreme heat had been used to weld it permanently. No hinges, no handles, no indication it was ever meant to be opened. It didn't look like a door, it looked like a prison. Symbols ran across its surface in deep grooves, spiraling toward the center. Two open hands carved around a square, filled with falling human figures. The same symbols from the defaced tablets above, but here they were whole, untouched. Diamond drills screeched against the surface without leaving a mark. The noise echoed like something alive. When they switched to a thermal lance, smoke filled the chamber. After hours of steady pressure, the seal finally cracked. A deep groan rose from within, followed by a rush of air so cold and foul that it drove everyone back. The smell burned their throats and left a metallic taste in their mouths. A camera probe was lowered through the opening. The vault was far larger than expected. A hollow, square chamber lined with metal panels that glowed faintly under the lights. The walls were coated in black. Later analysis revealed it was bitumen, mercury, and powdered metal. Ancient people sometimes used these substances separately for purification, but never combined them this way. Together, they created a deadly chemical barrier that killed bacteria and blocked air. The builders weren't preserving anything. They were isolating it. As the camera turned, shapes appeared along the walls. At first, they looked like carved human figures. When the camera zoomed in, the team realized the truth. The shapes weren't carved. They were burned. Carbon and calcium fused into the metal. Under ultraviolet light, the outlines glowed, human silhouettes, twisted and flattened. These weren't sculptures. They were people. Whoever had been inside the vault during the sealing process died instantly, their bodies fused to the walls by intense heat. The vault hadn't just trapped something dangerous, it had consumed those who tried to close it. At the center stood a raised stone platform covered in hardened resin and the remains of burned ropes. Something had been tied down and set on fire. Samples showed a mix of plant oil and metal oxide, compounds that ignite when exposed to air. This was a sealing compound designed to burn the oxygen out of the vault before closure. When they opened the vault, the compound reacted again, releasing freezing chemical vapor. The cold they felt wasn't supernatural. It was chemistry, repeating after 12,000 years. Next to the platform stood a statue of a human figure, carved in agony, mouth open in a silent scream, hands clawing upward. The surface gleamed, wet with thick black residue. The detail was unsettling. The stone showed vein-like lines beneath the surface. One researcher whispered that it looked newly made. This statue had been placed there after the sealing, a warning carved by survivors, showing what happened to anyone who disturbed what was buried. Then the camera signal flickered. The image warped. A dark shape passed across the far wall, like a shadow moving behind the lens. The operator insisted it was interference, but temperature readings began falling again. A slow vibration spread through the floor, rhythmic and steady. It continued for nearly a minute before fading. The sound recording captured something, a low hum that rose and fell like a pulse, then went silent. When the camera was pulled back, it was coated in thin, oily film. Under ultraviolet light, the residue shimmered and dissolved. The sample broke down before testing. Its molecular structure was organic, but carried metallic traces unknown to any recorded compound. By morning, several team members refused to re-enter. They reported hearing faint tapping from inside the vault, slow and deliberate, as if something beneath the metal was responding. Tools rusted overnight. Batteries drained in minutes. Lights flickered whenever anyone stepped too close. Whether these events were electrical interference or something else, No one argued when the lead scientist ordered the vault resealed. Within days, the Turkish Ministry of Culture declared the site restricted. The lower chamber was filled with clay and reinforced with stone. Officially, it was closed for safety reasons. Unofficially, the team believed it was an act of mercy. The vault was left buried once again, exactly as it had been for 12,000 years. The message decoding the walls. After resealing, scientists studied the recordings and photographs from inside. Along the metal walls and around the platform were lines of symbols carved before the final sealing, shallow but deliberate. When illuminated from the side, they formed a pattern, a language never seen before. Linguists compared the shapes to early Proto-Sumerian and Anatolian scripts. The similarities were undeniable. Over several weeks, 3 clear phrases emerged. We sealed what called from below. It answered through stone. We broke the earth to silence it. Not myth, record. These weren't prayers or legends. They were records. The builders described exactly what they did and why. They found something that came from below, something that produced sound, gas, or energy, and they sealed it to stop it from spreading. The phrases called and answered through stone suggest the material reacted to vibration or heat, possibly giving off energy or a chemical response that terrified them. The evidence supports it. Everything gathered from inside the chamber supports this interpretation. Burned bodies, melted resin, chemical isolation layers, mercury barriers. The builders of Göbekli Tepe weren't conducting rituals. They were performing containment. What they found. After the great climate shift of the Younger Dryas, they discovered something dangerous. Perhaps a toxic gas, a strange mineral, a biological compound that reacted with air. Whatever it was, they couldn't destroy it, so they buried it. In trying to seal it, many of them died. Their bodies fused to metal walls by heat. The survivors used everything they knew, fire, resin, mercury, to close the chamber and remove the air inside. Then they built Göbekli Tepe above it, covering the vault with layers of stone, so no one would ever dig there again. The first containment site. If this interpretation is correct, Göbekli Tepe is not humanity's first temple. It's the world's first containment site. It proves that 12,000 years ago, people already understood chemistry, pressure, and isolation. They used science to protect themselves from a threat they couldn't explain. Humanity's first great monument wasn't built to reach the gods. It was built to keep something deadly in the ground. The invention of fear. Before civilization began, before writing, before agriculture, before cities, the first great human invention was fear, and the wisdom to seal it away. The builders of Göbekli Tepe left us a warning carved in stone, metal, and the bodies of those who sacrificed themselves to contain something they believed would end their world. For 12,000 years, that warning has been buried. Now, we've opened it. So here's what I want to know. What do you think the builders were trying to warn us about? Was the vault a myth, a machine, or a message meant to stay buried forever? Were they protecting us from something real and tangible, a chemical, a biological agent, an energy source we still don't understand? Or were they sealing away knowledge itself, something they learned that they believed humanity wasn't ready to possess? The vault is sealed again now. The chamber is filled. The site is restricted. But the question remains, burning in the minds of everyone who descended into that cold, pulsing darkness. What was so dangerous that our ancestors would rather die than let it escape? And did we just wake it up?